The galaxy had been at war for 800,000 years. Entire civilizations rose and fell, leaving behind broken worlds and empty stars. Planets that once thrived were now nothing more than ashes drifting in the void. For countless generations, no side had ever won. Each victory was fleeting, each peace temporary. The endless cycle of destruction made the stars feel colder, darker, as if the galaxy itself had lost hope. Far away from the center of the conflict, in the quiet edges of the Zephyr Nebula, a single human warship drifted through the darkness. It was called the Resolute, a ship that seemed small and fragile against the vastness of the galaxy. But inside it held humanity's greatest strengths: courage, intelligence, and an unshakable will to survive. Its crew was tiny compared to the billions of soldiers in the warring empires, but every person aboard was a master of their craft. They had trained for years, preparing for missions that most would call impossible. Captain Elena Torres stood at the front of the command room, her hands resting lightly on the railing as she looked at the holographic map before her. The map glowed with the shapes of countless enemy fleets, a black tide of ships stretching farther than the eye could see. Millions of vessels, each designed to destroy, each ready to wipe out anything in their path. And there, at the very edge of the nebula, floated the Resolute, alone. "Do they even know what they are facing?" her first officer whispered almost to himself. "They will," Elena said quietly. Her voice was calm but firm, carrying the weight of responsibility and the fire of determination. "Not because we want war, but because war has come to us, and sometimes the galaxy needs to see the truth of humanity." The hum of the ship's engines filled the room, steady and deep. It was the heartbeat of the Resolute, a reminder that despite being outnumbered 1,000,000 to 1, they were still alive. Inside the crew quarters, the officers prepared silently, checking weapons, recalibrating shields, and reviewing strategies. They were ready. They had no illusions. This mission could end them all. And yet, even in the face of impossible odds, hope burned brightly. Elena remembered Earth. She remembered the blue oceans, the green forests, and the laughter of children playing under the sun. She remembered stories of humans surviving against all odds, of people who had faced storms, wars, and disasters, yet continued to fight. That memory gave her strength. Humanity had never been the strongest species, nor the most numerous, but they had something no machine or alien strategy could predict: heart. The stars outside the viewport seemed to shine differently that day. Or maybe it was just Elena and her crew, seeing them with renewed hope. Each distant sun was a reminder of the lives waiting back home and the futures they fought to protect. The silence of the nebula was complete. No other ships, no other signs of life, only the cold dark between stars. It was a silence that held both fear and promise. In that quiet, humanity waited, knowing that everything could change in a single moment. One decision, one strike, one act of courage could shake the galaxy to its core. Elena turned to her crew. "Remember this," she said, her voice steady, carrying a gentle authority. "We are not here to die quietly. We are here to show the galaxy that humans do not surrender. Not ever. Whatever comes, we face it together." The crew nodded, their eyes reflecting the glow of the holographic map. In that moment, they were more than a ship. They were the last hope for a galaxy tired of war. And somewhere in the endless stars, destiny waited for them. The Resolute floated silently, alone yet unafraid, ready to face the storm that had lasted 800,000 years. The galaxy did not yet know it, but in this quiet corner of space, the impossible was about to begin. The darkness of space was broken by the faint glimmer of distant stars. But even their light could not hide the shadow of the approaching armada. Millions of enemy ships moved in formation, endless and unstoppable. Entire fleets had been destroyed over the centuries, yet new ones always appeared, ready to continue the war. The galaxy had grown numb to fear, as if it had forgotten what peace felt like. But humanity's small warship, the Resolute, stood like a spark against a storm, alone and unwavering. Inside the command room, Captain Elena Torres studied the holographic displays. Enemy formations twisted and turned like a living creature, every move calculated to crush anything in its path. Yet Elena did not flinch. She had seen worse in simulations, in training, and in the history of her people. She knew the odds were against her, but she also knew that humanity had never relied on odds. Humanity relied on courage, on creativity, and on the refusal to give up. Her first officer, Lieutenant Rami, broke the silence. "Captain, sensors indicate the lead fleet is preparing for full assault. They'll strike in less than 30 minutes. Elena's gaze did not leave the map. "Then we strike first," she said calmly. Her voice carried the certainty of someone who had lived through impossible challenges. "We don't wait for them to destroy us. We show them what humans can do when pushed to the edge." The crew moved with quiet efficiency. Engineers checked the fusion drives, recalibrating the energy output to maximum. Weapons officers ran diagnostics on the plasma cannons, each beam ready to cut through thousands of tons of alien metal. Communication officers sent encrypted signals across the ship, coordinating every system with precise timing. Every person aboard knew their role, and every heartbeat in unison with one thought: survival not just of themselves, but of every living being who had ever hoped for an end to this endless war. Elena turned to her communications officer, a young woman named Lyra. "Prepare the obelisk protocol. Full power, and make sure it is ready to fire on my mark." Lyra's eyes widened slightly. The obelisk protocol was humanity's secret weapon, a creation built on Earth's boldest science and most daring imagination. No one outside their home system had ever seen it. It was powerful, dangerous, and untested, but that was exactly why it had to be used. "Yes, Captain," Lyra said, her voice steady but tinged with awe. She had read the reports, memorized the schematics, and understood the risk. Yet she had never questioned humanity's resolve. She knew that in the Resolute, fear was not weakness, it was fuel. As the Armada drew closer, sensors flickered with information. Enemy fleets were vast, intelligent, and relentless, yet they lacked something the humans possessed: unpredictability. Algorithms could calculate thousands of variables, but they could not predict courage. They could not anticipate creativity. They could not measure the depth of a species willing to fight for hope when all hope seemed lost. The stars outside seemed to tremble as the Resolute activated its engines, moving toward the heart of the enemy fleet. The ship hummed with quiet power, a pulse like a heartbeat in the infinite void. And in that moment, humanity's presence became more than a single ship. It became a promise. The galaxy was about to witness something it had never imagined. Elena took a deep breath and spoke to her crew. "Remember why we fight. Not for glory, not for fear, but because we can't stand by while the universe suffers. This is our moment. Let them see what humans are truly capable of." The crew exchanged determined glances. Every hand was steady. Every eye was focused. Every mind was ready. Together, they were more than a crew. They were the spark that could ignite change in a war that had raged for almost 1,000,000 years. And as the darkness of the void surrounded them, the Resolute surged forward. One small human ship against an armada older than civilization itself, moving with courage that no algorithm could predict. The galaxy would never be the same again. The void of space erupted as the Resolute moved into the heart of the alien armada. The stars seemed to tremble under the onslaught of energy beams and plasma fire. Enemy ships, massive and countless, filled every sensor, but the humans did not falter. They had trained for this. They had prepared for the impossible. And now, they were living it. Captain Elena Torres stood at the command railing, eyes sharp and unblinking. "Target the lead vessels," she ordered, her voice steady and calm. "Precision over power. Make every shot count." The crew obeyed instantly. Weapons officers adjusted plasma turrets, firing arcs of energy that carved through alien armor like a blade through cloth. Explosions blossomed across the enemy fleet, sending entire squadrons spinning into the black nothingness. The humans had no fear, only focus. Every movement, every decision was deliberate. Every strike was a statement. Humanity would not be ignored. The aliens had never seen tactics like this. Their fleets had conquered countless worlds, destroyed civilizations, yet they could not comprehend the Resolute. Algorithms struggled to predict the ship's maneuvers. Command structures collapsed as panic spread. Every alien officer, every AI, was unprepared for the audacity of a single, daring human vessel. Inside the command room, Lieutenant Rami spoke up, his voice a mix of astonishment and concern. "Captain, the fleet is breaking apart. They're retreating." Elena did not relax. "Hold formation. Keep pressing. We do not stop until every lead ship is neutralized. Show them humans fight for more than survival. We fight for hope." The Resolute weaved through streams of enemy fire with impossible agility. Shields absorbed blows that would have obliterated any ordinary vessel, and the crew worked with flawless coordination. Each officer anticipated the next movement. Each engineer optimized energy flow to weapons and shields. The humans were small in number but enormous in impact. In the middle of the chaos, Elena remembered the stories of humanity's past, tales of survival against famine, plagues, and wars that seemed unwinnable. Humans had endured centuries of hardship on a fragile planet. They had learned to adapt, to innovate, to fight with heart when all else failed. That same heart was guiding them now in the black heart of the galaxy. Explosions lit up the void, distant stars flickering against the glow. Alien ships that had been considered invincible were reduced to drifting wrecks. Signals of surrender and confusion spread across enemy frequencies. The Armada, once an unbroken tide of destruction, was now splintering. Elena's voice cut through the comms, calm but filled with strength. Do not let them regroup. Do not give them a chance to recover. Humanity does not retreat. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity wins. For the first time in 800,000 years, the galaxy witnessed fear, not in humans, but in those who had ruled the stars. The invaders saw their fleets shattered by a single vessel, and panic replaced their centuries of calculated strategy. The Resolute continued its assault, moving like a phantom through the wreckage, precise and unstoppable. Crew members felt the weight of history pressing on their shoulders, yet their resolve never wavered. They were not just fighting ships, they were fighting for the future of every living being who had suffered in the endless wars. Minutes passed like hours, and still the human ship pressed forward. Enemy communications were filled with confusion. Orders were ignored. Leaders fled or hid, and through it all the Resolute glowed like a beacon of hope in the black emptiness. Finally, after an endless torrent of fire and explosions, the lead vessels fell. The alien command was broken, their fleet in disarray. The first strike had succeeded beyond imagination. The impossible had been achieved by a single human warship. Elena leaned against the railing, eyes scanning the wreckage. It has begun, she whispered. Not with pride, but with the quiet knowledge that humanity had just reminded the galaxy what courage, determination, and heart could accomplish. And in that instant, the universe changed forever. One small ship, one determined crew had become the spark that could end a war older than civilization itself. The Resolute surged deeper into the shattered Armada. Smoke and debris drifted through space like drifting snow, illuminated by the flickering explosions of alien ships. The battle was far from over, but humanity had already shown that even one ship could change the course of history. The crew felt the weight of what they were doing, not just fighting for themselves, but for every life that had been caught in this endless war. Captain Elena Torres stood at the command railing, watching the chaos unfold. Her eyes were sharp, scanning every movement, every threat. Keep formation tight. Precision over speed. Every shot must count, she commanded, her voice calm yet carrying the weight of determination. The crew responded immediately, a symphony of synchronized action as weapons fired and shields pulsed to absorb the alien strikes. The aliens struck back with all their might. Energy beams tore across space, some hitting the Resolute with devastating force. Shields flared, alarms blared, and the hull vibrated under the impact. Yet the crew remained unshaken. Each officer anticipated the next attack. Each engineer adjusted the energy flow with exact timing. And every crew member moved with the knowledge that failure was not an option. Elena thought of Earth, her home planet, fragile and beautiful, full of life that she loved. She thought of the people whose futures were at stake, the countless generations of humans who had survived famine, disease, and war on a small blue world. Humanity was not the strongest or the largest species in the galaxy, but it had heart, and that heart was driving them now, giving them strength to face an impossible enemy. Captain, the enemy is trying to regroup, Lieutenant Rami said, pointing to the holographic display. They're forming a counterattack, but it's disorganized. Elena's lips tightened. Then we make sure it stays disorganized. Target their lead ships. Disrupt their command. Let them see that chaos is not their ally against humanity. The Resolute twisted and weaved through fire and debris, a single vessel moving with deadly grace. Plasma beams cut through alien ships, shields flared, and explosions lit the void in brilliant arcs. The aliens' algorithms could not predict the human tactics. Their carefully calculated strategies collapsed against the unpredictable bravery and ingenuity of a single human crew. Inside the ship, the crew worked as one. Engineers monitored every system, repairing micro-damage before it became critical. Weapons officers recalibrated turrets on the fly. Even the youngest crew members moved with precision, knowing their role was essential. Each action was deliberate, each decision measured. They were not just soldiers, they were a living symbol of human will, a force the galaxy had never understood. Elena raised her hand and spoke softly but with authority. Remember why we fight. Not for glory, not for fear, but because we refuse to let the universe suffer under endless war. Every life matters. Every act of courage matters. And right now, we are that courage. The crew felt the truth in her words. Fear existed, but it was tempered by purpose. Exhaustion threatened them, but they pushed on, driven by something larger than themselves. The human spirit. The same spirit that had built civilizations from nothing, survived plagues, and endured millennia of hardship, was guiding them through the darkness. Minute by minute, the tide of battle shifted. Alien ships that once seemed invincible were now falling, retreating or lost in confusion. The chaos was theirs to command, and yet the Resolute pressed forward, unstoppable, a living testament to what humans could do when all odds were against them. As explosions echoed across space, Elena whispered to herself, "The impossible is possible, because we refuse to stop." In the heart of the battle, humanity's courage shone brighter than any star, and the galaxy, for the first time in 800,000 years, began to understand that war was not over, not because of the aliens, but because a single human warship had changed everything. The Resolute moved through the debris-strewn battlefield, a lone spark of light in the dark sea of destruction. The alien armada, once seemingly endless, was now fragmented and trembling. Their command ships had been shattered, their formations broken, and their soldiers panicked. For the first time in 800,000 years, the galaxy witnessed fear, not in humans, but in the mighty empires that had ruled countless worlds. Captain Elena Torres stood at the command railing, her eyes scanning the remains of the enemy fleet. Every ship they destroyed, every energy beam that struck true, was a step closer to ending a war that had lasted longer than history itself. She felt the weight of every life lost in the conflict on both sides pressing against her heart. And yet she did not falter. Humanity had endured unimaginable hardship to reach this moment, and they would not waste it. Lieutenant Rami spoke up, awe and disbelief in his voice. "Captain, the lead ships, they're surrendering. They're signaling they can't continue." Elena nodded slowly. "Maintain position. Do not fire unless fired upon. Humanity is not here to annihilate for pride. We are here to stop the endless cycle of destruction. Let them see the choice they have." Inside the Resolute, the crew felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. For hours they had fought the impossible, dodging blasts that could obliterate any ordinary ship, firing with precision and courage against enemies who had never faced a human before. And now, after 50 minutes of relentless battle, the impossible had begun to yield. The alien fleets communicated in frantic bursts, their orders tangled in confusion. Commanders argued with their artificial intelligences, trying to regain control. But every plan collapsed against the unpredictable audacity of the human ship. The Resolute had not just fought. It had shattered centuries of strategy, proving that courage and ingenuity could outweigh numbers and technology. Elena's voice echoed through the ship, calm but commanding. "Do not let them believe this was luck. Show them that humans act when all odds are against them. Show them that our courage cannot be measured by numbers alone." The crew obeyed, moving in perfect harmony. Plasma beams cut through the enemy vessels, disabling weapons without unnecessary destruction. Shields absorbed devastating impacts. Systems worked seamlessly under pressure. The Resolute was not just a warship. It was a symbol of human will, and the galaxy could feel it. Outside the windows, the remnants of the alien armada drifted helplessly. Smoke and fire filled space like a frozen storm. Entire squadrons that had once been feared now floated silently, powerless against the human force that had toppled them. The turning point of the war had arrived, not with armies or diplomacy, but with a single ship and a crew determined to protect life rather than destroy it. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself feel the enormity of what was happening. We are not gods, she whispered to herself. We are humans, and yet, sometimes being human is enough. The alien leaders, for the first time in their history, faced a choice. They could continue the fight and risk total annihilation, or they could surrender and listen to the species they had underestimated. Slowly, signals of surrender rippled through the armada. Ships stopped firing. Weapons went silent. For 50 minutes, a single human warship had not just fought. They had ended the war. Inside the Resolute, the crew allowed themselves a moment of quiet. Ostian and relief washed over them, but beneath it all was pride. Not arrogance, but the deep, unshakable knowledge that they had changed history. They had faced the impossible, and they had won. Elena looked at her crew, her eyes shining. Remember this moment, she said softly. We did not destroy. We did not conquer. We survived, and we showed the galaxy what humanity truly is. In the vast emptiness of space, the echo of humanity's courage spread farther than any weapon ever could. One small ship had ended 800,000 years of war in 50 minutes, and the galaxy would never forget it. The silence after the battle was almost deafening. The stars, once hidden behind the glow of countless warships and energy blasts, shone quietly as if the universe itself was catching its breath. The alien fleets, shattered and leaderless, floated in disarray. They had never expected mercy, and yet humanity had not come to destroy them. It had come to stop the endless war. Inside the Resolute, the crew moved slowly, exhausted, but alive. Weapon systems were powered down, shields relaxed, and alarms finally fell silent. Captain Elena Torres stood at the front of the command room, looking out at the void filled with wreckage. The galaxy had witnessed something unprecedented. A single human ship had ended 800,000 years of war in just 50 minutes. The weight of that reality pressed on her chest, a mixture of awe, relief, and sorrow. Lieutenant Rami broke the quiet. Captain, they're signaling. Entire fleets are surrendering. They want peace. Elena nodded, her eyes softening. Let them know humanity is willing to listen. But let them also know that the future of the galaxy depends on respect and understanding, not fear and destruction. For the first time, some of the alien survivors dared to communicate directly. Messages filled with questions, hesitations, and disbelief came through the Resolute's comms. They wanted to understand what had just happened, how one small species could wield such power and yet show such restraint. Humanity had proven that strength was not only measured in weapons or numbers, but in courage, intelligence, and the choice to fight for life rather than domination. The crew of the Resolute moved among the systems, repairing minor damage, recalibrating engines, and preparing to return home. Though tired beyond measure, they were proud. Every crew member understood the significance of their actions, not as conquerors but as witnesses and protectors. Humanity had reminded the galaxy that even the smallest spark could ignite change. Elena turned to her crew, her voice gentle but full of pride. You did not just fight a battle. You reminded the galaxy that humanity has heart, that our courage is not bound by size or age or history. Today we change the future. The crew exchanged quiet smiles, some wiping tears from their eyes. They had faced a war older than anyone could imagine and had survived. They had seen death and destruction, but they had chosen to rise above it. Every member felt the weight of history on their shoulders and the hope that the galaxy might finally learn to be better. Outside, drifting wrecks of alien ships glowed faintly in the starlight. The battlefield that had once been a storm of fire and fury was now eerily calm. It was a moment of reflection, a moment to honor the lives lost on all sides. Humanity's message was clear. War could end, not through annihilation, but through courage, intelligence, and mercy. Elena's thoughts drifted to Earth. She imagined the blue oceans, the green forests, the children who would never know the fear and despair of this war. Humanity had not only survived, they had ensured a future for countless lives across the stars. That thought filled her with a quiet, profound pride. As the Resolute prepared to leave the battlefield, the crew felt something they had not experienced in a long time. Hope. A fragile, glowing hope that the galaxy might finally learn to work together. That war might one day be a story of the past, rather than a continuous nightmare. Humanity had done what no empire, no fleet, no weapon had done in 800,000 years. They had reminded the universe of the power of heart, courage, and determination. Elena looked at her crew one last time. "Remember this day," she said softly. "Not because we are heroes, but because we are human. And sometimes being human is the greatest strength of all." The stars outside twinkled, silent witnesses to history. Humanity's courage had reached across the galaxy, touching even the darkest corners of war. And though the future was uncertain, one truth was clear. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never forget it. The Resolute drifted silently through the aftermath of battle, its engines a quiet hum against the endless dark. The alien armada, once an unstoppable force, lay scattered and broken, its leaders surrendering, its soldiers in shock. The galaxy, for the first time in 800,000 years, was silent, not because the war had paused, but because it had ended. Captain Elena Torres stood at the command railing, her eyes reflecting the distant stars. She could see the remnants of fleets drifting like fallen giants, their lights flickering weakly in the void. The destruction was immense, yet there was no celebration aboard the Resolute. There was only a quiet, profound relief and a heavy understanding of what had just happened. Humanity had faced the impossible and survived, but at what cost and for what future? Lieutenant Rami approached her quietly, his face tired but illuminated with wonder. "Captain, the fleets, they're sending messages. Entire civilizations are asking to negotiate. They want peace." Elena nodded, her gaze still fixed on the endless void. "They have seen what we are capable of. Not because we are the strongest or the largest, but because we are human. We fight not for conquest, but for life. And today that has changed everything." Inside the Resolute, the crew began the slow process of recovery. Systems were checked, minor damages repaired, and communications opened to the alien fleets. Messages of surrender, of hesitation, and of curiosity poured in. Across species, across systems, the galaxy began to reconsider its path. Old rivalries were paused, grudges set aside, and whispers of cooperation began to spread. Humanity had not only survived the battle, they had forced the galaxy to hope again. Elena walked through the corridors, quietly observing her crew. Engineers, weapons officers, and communications specialists moved with calm precision, yet each carried a new spark in their eyes. They had witnessed history. They had fought the impossible. And in doing so, they had shown the universe that humanity's greatest weapon was not technology or numbers. It was courage, ingenuity, and heart. She paused in the observation deck, looking at the distant blue planet of Earth. She thought of the billions of humans living their ordinary lives, unaware of the cosmic storm that had just passed. And yet, because of the courage of a small crew aboard a single ship, those lives, and countless others across the galaxy, were safe. Humanity had ensured that the light of life would continue to shine, no matter how dark the universe had seemed. Elena's voice, quiet and filled with emotion, echoed through the ship. "We are not gods. We are not rulers. We are humans, and sometimes that is enough to change the course of history." The crew gathered, standing together as one. Some wept quietly, overwhelmed by exhaustion and relief. Others smiled, feeling the quiet pride that comes not from victory over others, but from the knowledge that they had survived, that they had acted when all seemed lost. Every member understood that their courage had echoed across the stars, touching every corner of the galaxy. Outside, the alien fleets drifted in silence, processing the truth of what had happened. One small species, underestimated for millennia, had reminded the universe of a simple, undeniable truth. When humans act, the impossible becomes reality. That truth would ripple through civilizations for generations, a story of courage, hope, and heart that no war could ever erase. As the Resolute turned its course back toward Earth, the crew gazed at the stars with quiet wonder. Humanity had arrived in the galaxy not as conquerors, but as a force of change. They had faced an endless war and turned it into a beginning, a chance for peace, for hope, for life. And somewhere in the infinite darkness, the first spark of a new era began to shine. Humanity's dawn had arrived. The Resolute was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol of courage, of heart, of the truth that even in the darkest times, one human or one small crew could remind the galaxy of the power of hope. The stars watched in silence as humanity sailed forward, and the universe, for the first time in 800,000 years, dared to dream of a better tomorrow.